Welcome to Push with Love. Today we have Amita. Amita, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Great.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what passion you have.
Yeah, I've been practicing Ayurvedic medicine for about 25 years. I've had a clinical practice, and as you can imagine, if you calculate 25 years back, I started studying Ayurveda in the early 90s. By the time I graduated, Ayurveda was still not considered to be a common practice, even amongst those who practice holistic medicine. And there was absolutely no conversation or dialogue about Ayurvedic medicine happening in the form of integrative medicine like the way we see it today. So, after all these years of practice, I'm very honored that I get to teach in an academic setting. I teach at the University of Arizona, the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine, and I get to practice every single day and practice my passion. I'm a custodian of this beautiful 5,000-year-old approach to medicine, and I'm very passionate about helping physicians and other healthcare providers to use language and be able to use the understanding of how we look at the disease process in Ayurveda to translate it into today's world. And how we do that is step by step, little by little, but it's a great passion of mine to help change the conversation around healthcare in this country.
Beautiful. I agree. I feel like we definitely need to get some adjustments with it. Our healthcare system, our approach to food and medicine, it seems to be becoming more complicated and processed, which is only causing more health issues. And I can only imagine it's causing more issues mentally as well and spiritually, which I believe that's something that we need to keep in balance is our mental health as well as our spiritual health. So when you approach this with somebody that's basically new to it or unaware of it, how do you kind of ease them into the concept of Ayurvedic medicine?
Luckily today there is so much knowledge and information about mind body medicine. We talk about the health benefits of meditation and yoga or breathing exercises and how that can really help with optimize our quality of life. And so sometimes I just start there and talk about that true medicine isn't just about treating the disease, even if it's done holistically. That's not always going to be our starting point. For sure, we address the symptoms, but if we don't look at it from a true fundamental root cause perspective, then all we're doing is we're just putting a band aid on something that will continue to perpetuate itself. And I will tell patients too, I'll say, just because you go to a holistic practitioner, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to address it holistically. Sometimes there is even replacing pharmaceuticals with nutraceuticals. But true healing happens when we consider all of the aspects of one's life. And I will ask patients, are you ready to have me ask you about your emotional, spiritual, relationship life, as well as your physiological ailments? Are you okay with me delving deep into what makes you tick or what you believe in or what do you think happens when we die? This is the whole lifespan we're talking about here. And if we just isolate it into this one moment of time that we have right now, sure, we may be coming to the table with an ailment, but without the consideration of everything else, I wouldn't be doing my job. I would be doing a disservice to this great medicine by just picking and choosing what aspects I can use within my clinical practice for the convenience of myself and my patients. And, at some point, even in my personal practice, I had to come to a place where even though there could have been some things that I could do immediately out of the gate, until I really got to see somebody, I really dedicated myself to saying, am I exploring everything? Because if I don't, then I'm just running a 5-minute practice too, where I don't even give the patient an opportunity. We all don't even know we have the opportunity to hear a story that might put two and two together, that we can really help the patient. And this is really what a holistic practice looks like. This is what Ayurvedic practice looks like. It's showing up and being present for your patients, mind, body, and spirit, and giving the time to actually let that solution unfold, as opposed to just walking in and thinking that you know what you can do for them.
That's beautiful. I agree. I feel like if you approach medicine as a whole, rather than just a band-aid or treating the root cause of an issue or a disease, I think that's really the best approach. Because every individual has a very complex life. It's not a simple, one pill will fix your problem. Uh, so when you first started in this journey, was there an event or a moment that you can remember that kind of sparked this passion?
So, I actually come from a family of Western doctors. My father was he's retired now, an orthopedic neurosurgeon who went into private practice after many years. And I had an opportunity to actually work in his practice. In the summers we would work and help my dad out and learn how to do billing and charting. And this was in Canada at the time, so we were doing it more in a different kind of way. And I, I'm very grateful. My father really was my first spark for me to understand that so much of disease could just be prevented. And he really lived by that and wanted to offer that to his patients. And we would explore topics together. We would understand all types of alternative approaches to health, as well as he would have me study my pathophysiology books, in the summer as well. But what really helped that was really kind of the foundation. I had already planned to go into medicine, but what really sparked this particular journey was that I did not look like the rest of my family. I did not have the same health things. I mean, I look like my parents, obviously I'm of their family, but um, I was eating the same food that they were eating. I was living the same lifestyle that they had. And yet I was really, really unhealthy. I had been overweight. I had developed something called polycystic ovary syndrome um, shortly after I became an adolescent. And there were so many confusing pieces and things about my health that I just couldn't understand. And I kept saying to myself, I'm just not like everyone else. And I would meet other people along the way, and I would see that, everybody's health and everybody's way of walking through the world and being who they are was so completely different that, in my fundamental spiritual life and exploration of alternative things, I really started to look more and more into Ayurvedic medicine, because I saw that it offers a little bit of a different explanation of why we are all different. And if we fast forward to today, this is why, anyone who says everybody should eat fermented food, or everybody should take turmeric, or everybody should wake up at 5 a.m., this does not apply for everyone. We all come to the table not only with our own genetic predisposition, but in Ayurveda, we also talk about ourselves constitutionally. And not only that, but think about the things we go through in life. We have traumas, or we have incident that may occur. We may have environmental exposures, and so when you put all of those things together and make up a human being, it can never be a one size fits all. And I think that for me and my own health, I had to learn very quickly that constitutionally I was very different than the rest of my family. So Ayurveda was very appealing. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I laugh and say that it validated so much of who I am. and gave me, I felt actually really seen and respected for being different than other people. And that's what this medicine really does.
It's beautiful. And I can relate feeling like you don't really fit or you're kind of standing out and you can't find a reason why until you get to that moment. Like this is the reason why. Uh, Now, when you approach this idea of an ancient medicine that encompasses the mind, the health of the body, and the spiritual aspect of it, how do you think we could approach this and apply it to modern times or make adjustments so that people are a little bit more open to receiving this kind of approach?
Yeah, I wrote a book and it's called Ayurveda Breaking the Rules Without Breaking the Principles. And essentially, what it talks about is that, we can follow some beautiful principles. Like, rarely is one going to argue that eating well can contribute to a better quality of life, or moving can help, or having good respiration and breath, sleeping well. Some of these things are time tested, lots of empirical, clinical evidence to show that when we implement these things into our lives inherently become better, or we have a better quality of life. The question becomes is, so what does that mean? What is implementing these things like? And unless we get to know ourselves, it's very hard for us to decide what that is. So like, a diet for you or a diet for me and what makes us healthy are two completely different things. We come from completely different parts of the world. So I give this great example of many years ago, I had moved to Colorado. It was not long after I had graduated and did my residency. And when I got to Colorado, I kind of looked around and I was amazed. I immediately called my teacher in India and I said, "This place is so strange. Everybody eats a lot of meat and they drink a lot of beer, yet they're high performing athletes. How is this possible?" And my teacher just asked one question. He said, "What's the elevation?" And when I told him it was 7,000 feet above sea level, he said, "Of course." He's like, "They're probably eating more gamey meat and, eating foods that are higher in saturated fat because of the high, dry climate. And they're probably drinking beer that is bitter or hoppy because it helps to break down those fats in the body." So he said, this is Ayurveda. We're creating balances. It's always a question of, whenever you're eating something, have you heard that whole thing that whenever you're eating something, just add some spices to it to help stimulate digestion so you can break it down better. It's almost like that concept where when we look at it from an anthropology perspective, in today's day, of course, we look back in time, like, what were we eating? We weren't eating a salad in the middle of winter in Colorado, right? But also, who are we and what's our genetic predisposition? So I was blown away. 10 generations of vegetarians. How can I start eating meat? But I really had to consider that it isn't about me eating meat. It's about me understanding, what does my body need in this climate? And I don't necessarily need to lean on meat, but I can and should probably lean on more saturated fats. And so getting those into my diet to help ground me in this high, dry climate was really the way to balance myself. And when you start to understand what grows in my environment, right? Eating sustainably. Who am I as a person? What is my lifestyle? Do I work night shifts? Well, then clearly I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. That's ridiculous. Until one really gets to know themselves and understands what they need, it's very hard to implement those old school techniques or old school theories into today's modern world, where we actually require evidence-based research to substantiate why we're doing what we're doing. And I say, bypass all of that and sit with yourself and ask yourself, where am I in my healthiest state of being? We didn't have all this technology back in the day when we, could, look at polymers and, pick apart, isolate, and extract herbs and see what components of what were creating the greatest anti-inflammatory effect. We didn't have that. What we had was the ability to be able to do something and implement it and ask ourselves, who are we? What is it we're trying to achieve? And how am I getting to this place? And I try to help my patients achieve that. My job is not to tell them what to do. My job is to help them understand themselves well enough that then they become more in tune with themselves, the natural world around them, and then they know what they need to do and bypass all the noise of the fads of today of what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. I love that you were referencing how the environment has an impact on the person, not just like mentally and physically, but in their diet and what their body needs and how it responds. Because I feel the same way. I feel that the energy that is surrounding you when you're eating, or the energy that you are emitting yourself while you are eating, can have an impact on how you are responding to the food you consume. When you approach the idea of self-love and love for others, is this something that could also kind of impact a person's diet or their mental health and well-being?
If we just think about what we do on a day-to-day basis and why we do the things that we do, the question comes up a lot, which is, are we giving enough credit or heedance to who we are and what we need to do in order to be healthy, happy beings? And sometimes we're trying to please others, or sometimes we're just trying to do the right thing. Like, I just need to avoid getting cancer, or I want to make sure that I don't go down the same road as a parent and get Alzheimer's. And we're spending so much time on the exterior that we forget the most important thing, and that is us. And we have a responsibility. I tell people who say, I don't have time for self-care, I don't know what that means to have self-love, isn't that a little bit selfish? And I always say, it's selfish not to. Like, we've been given a gift of life, and if we really adhere to the philosophy, which what one may or may not, but I believe that we are all extensions of the same earth. We're all here, we're collectively here, we're walking under the same sun. Every time you abuse yourself, you are abusing the collective. Every time you abuse others, you're abusing yourself. So, there's the age-old sayings of, do unto others as you would do, do as you would like others to do for you. But it goes deeper than that. It goes into that if we really acknowledge that love transcends an individual being, it transcends me and you and our personalities. So easy to love someone's personality. Oh, they agree with me. I love them. But what about just love for humanity and love for this natural world around us? We're part of this. If we don't like each other, we're also not liking or not loving nature and what all of life has to offer. And so I think it is a responsibility to love, because when we don't, we're ignoring the desire to want to make this world a better place. And some might say that this is kind of some I often hear this spiritual bypassing. Oh, just love everyone and everything's going to be okay. And, individuals don't want to get involved in like social action or politics. And I think that if you come from true love, then you can be a true activist, where inherently your motivation and your desire comes from that place of love, not out of opposition, really from that place of wanting to create a better world. And now more than ever, I think that we really need to show up with that more and more and more, because we're losing our way by wanting to somehow create an ideology of what we think is right without going inward and actually being that for each other.
Oh, very well said. Being it is the trick. I feel that a lot of times people will project an idea out onto others or onto a group rather than embodying the ideology themselves. It's almost a way to, as you said, bypass spiritually any type of accountability. And this isn't really helping our society by passing judgment on others rather than showing love for them. And we don't have to necessarily accept abuse or negative behaviors, but we do need to show understanding and try to help them. So when you're approaching this idea of activism in the community with medicine that kind of encompasses more than just a band-aid, it encompasses a whole philosophy. The one thing that I always kind of fall back into when I think about these is how does it really translate into the modern times, and how can we get it to there to the point where people are open to it, because this information is crucial and it's ancient and well practiced and proven, yet we are in a society that is so pressured to have the quick fix and ignore what they actually need when it comes to self-love. This is the one thing that I keep falling into is how do we get this information to people, and what advice do we give these people?
Mm-hmm. I have hope. I have a lot of hope. I'm very fortunate. I get to spend time with others, like-minded people who are also interested in helping to change the conversation around all of this. And healthcare happens to be, the the platform that I stand on. It happens to be my discipline. So it's through healthcare that I want to help to change this conversation. And what I do know is that, for good or bad, society is very frustrated with the way that healthcare has been all of this time. They want a little bit more of a whole body, individualized approach. They would like their doctor to talk to them and sit with them and give them compassion, and allow them to be who they are and not be met with judgment. So I think that, at the end of the day, I think that when the masses begin to show discomfort, then inherently we have to change. Now, we can either be part of that conversation of, okay, what do we want that change to look like? Or we can just let it unfold. And a lot of times, when we let things unfold, it usually is taken over by consumerism and, what sells. So if we can start be part of that change and part of that conversation, I think that is where we put our foot in. If there's a crack in the door, we put our foot in there and we open the door wide open. So for me, it's about educating physicians on how to change the way they practice or to meet their patients in a different kind of way. I can't tell you how many times I have been a mentor to physicians where I've sat them down and said, don't be afraid to have a relationship with your patient. And they're just aghast. And you don't have to take them out for dinner or go play
Right.
golf with them. You can just hold their hand and ask them, so, how's it going? Are you doing okay? How's it been since, you put your mom in hospice? And how are the kids? And did you have a great time on your vacation? And in doing so, that, like, how simple of an act that is to just show up and be present for somebody. We can all practice medicine in the way that we do. Of course, I want to get it right. Let's get it right. That's not love. That's not healing. That's addressing the issue. But true love and healing happens in the moments in between, where we show up. We show up. I don't have to tell anybody to practice love. You know, I don't think that that's going to really go anywhere. And because we all get caught up in life too, right? We have our own individual stories, and sometimes I can't even hear it. But what we do is we show up for that. This just came to mind, I have to say. When I was young, the people I remember still to this day, okay, I'm over 50 now. The people I remember were the adults who were just so kind. Period.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing really to say.
They were present.
Mm-hmm.
They saw you and they heard you.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt it. I think that sticks with you when you feel like you are seen and heard and valued. You carry it on and pass it on to the next person. I agree. I feel that our society, most of the world actually, could slow down and just be present with each other and less focused on speeding through things in order to maximize the profit or get on to the next or just solve the problem, so to speak. And just remember that we're just people. We're all just people trying to survive on this plane together. I appreciate all of the wisdom that you share with me today, share with all of us. I feel like this subject is one of the most crucial subjects for our society, is how do we adjust our approach to the health and wealth of our body and our mind and our spirituality and our food, our relationship to food. Thank you again for your time, and if you have any closing remarks you'd like to say, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I just appreciate having a platform where we can talk about love. The word love is not used in medicine, very often. And I also would really just say that even without being in medicine, we can heal each other every day. You don't have to have a degree, and you don't have to have your sign up that says you do something or the other to help others. We can just wake up every day and choose to have that in our hearts. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk about such a beautiful topic.
Absolutely. I agree. I feel like the more opportunities we can spread a message of love and incorporate that into our daily lives with ourselves and others, the better. So thank you again. And
Thank you.
this has been Push with Love with Amita. Until next time, please remember to like and subscribe. Take care.